Ballad.
Should we not have a ballad?
No, it's okay. I'm just letting you know.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're coming in on a ballad.
Yeah.
So this is my guest, Steve Cardenas today. And I'm going to show you in a minute the screen. Hmm, really nice. The Steve Cardenas Quartet. Okay. Really great playing. Beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Nouvelle Records, is that your record company?
It's not. It's not the one that I've recorded on the most, but it was a special project.
I see.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is Steve Cardenas.
Hello. I
We
can't
were,
hear you.
yeah, we were, we haven't seen each other for a long time, probably, but
Long time.
I have to say, you look the same.
Uh, that's very nice. Though I know it's not true.
Well, to
But
me,
you
it
look the
looks the
same.
same. Well, yeah, see.
See?
I
So,
guess besides the gray hair, some people's faces really change,
yeah,
at
true.
the age, and but I think you and I are kind of remaining similar.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, you know, that's nice. However it works out, life's gonna kind of do what it's gonna do to your body in that regard, the aging regard.
Right. Of course, we all look in the mirror in the morning and go, "Oh, you're right, Joyce Glasgow. Steve Cardenas is a sensitive guitarist. You are correct. I
I'm
agree.
gonna I'm gonna have to correct you right off and say Cardenas.
Cardenas. I know.
Yeah,
No, I said
Cardenas.
that
Yeah,
earlier, but
yeah.
sometimes the brain shorts out.
No, it's okay. It's all my life, you know.
I hope it's not a sore point.
No, no.
Okay.
But it's good, just it's good for people to know because I think just the natural tendency is to go to Cardenas and if it was pronounced in Spanish, it would be Cardenas, but there's a written accent on the first syllable, so that's why it's Cardenas. Sort of like the
Oh,
St. Louis Cardinals, Cardinals. Think of
see
it like
the
that.
things you learn on the Noontime Facebook.
Oh, I've got so much.
Oh, thank you. Well, tell us about the quartet first, because that's really quite beautiful. How long is it been that group of people?
Well, no, that was like that was a special project,
Yeah.
and what it was is um, so Sunnyside is the record label that I've recorded 3 records with, but it's not an exclusive arrangement. I don't think any small jazz label would expect their artists to be exclusive,
Yeah. Yeah.
these days.
Hmm.
And so Nouvelle it's a label that's I think based in France, but they have a producer that lives here in the States, Ilan Mailer, and he uh, so it's an vinyl only label. They
Oh,
don't they don't make digital. Although I think they're considering moving to that format, but I'll explain what that all entails. So it's vinyl only and it's a subscription thing. So
oh,
they put out 4 to 5 records or so when what they call a season. So that would be a year. And those, in order to get one of those records, you have to buy the whole season,
oh,
which means that you're going to throw down some money, you
yeah.
know. And so it's geared a little more towards audiophiles or people that maybe collect more exclusive music uh, offerings and maybe have really nice systems, great turntables and whatnot. So I've done 3 records for them, and that one, the first one I did was with Ben Allison and Ted Nash, and Ben was the leader, and they had asked Ben to do, a special project, and we did the music of Jim Hall and a couple of Jimmy Jufrey tunes, and so that was when I got to know Elan, the producer. And then the next year, I ended up playing with John Cowherd, the piano player. I'm in his band, the Mercy Project. And we did a record for Nouvelle. and that was with Tony Shearer on bass and Brian Blade on drums. And so then the next year is when Ilan approached me about doing one. But he had a specific idea in mind, which was, since I'd played in Paul Motian's Electric Bebop band for a long time and Charlie Haden's Liberation Music Orchestra, he said, you know, we'd like to do a record with you. What do you think about the idea of doing a record of Paul Motian and Charlie Haden's music? So at first I was like, I would love to do that. And then my second feeling was, that scares the crap out of me. It's mostly just kind of like all of a sudden the heap of expectations upon myself to not suck, you know. You know, it's like, oh my gosh, Charlie and Paul's music, I love it. And yet I want to do something that would be, you know, respectful and you know, a real tribute to them. But I mean, I got over that pretty quickly. And we started talking about who would play on it. And we spent like maybe 5 minutes talking about that. Just because you know, the criteria was, let's look at musicians that have played with either, you know, artist or both of them. I mean, Lauren Stillman, the alto player, and I have played with both of them, mostly because neither of us play bass or drums. So Lauren he played in Liberation Music Orchestra, and he played in one of Paul's groups called Trio 2000 plus 2. And he's amazing. I don't even know. There's not enough adjectives for Lauren. He's just got a beautiful sound and conception and great improviser. And then Thomas Morgan is on bass, he's been playing a lot with Bill Frisell the last few years, and a lot of other folks. And I first met Thomas, because I was in Joey Barron's band. Joey had this band called Killer Joey for about 10 years there, in the kind of from say 1999 to about 2009. And we used to do some tours. Tony Shearer was the main bass player, but Thomas would sub for him sometimes. So first time I met Thomas, he was all of like 18 or 19 years old and sounding kind of like what you just heard. He just an incredible musician. And so he played in Paul's Trio 2000 and also played in this group that the group of Paul's that I played in was the Electric Bebop band, but that in later years morphed into a bigger group that involved a few more instruments, and sometimes would have two basses, and Thomas ended up being one of the other bassists in that sometimes. And then Matt Wilson, who's an old buddy, and he played in Liberation Music Orchestra, but he also played in Dewey Redman's band, and you know, Charlie and Dewey Redman have a lot of history in playing with Keith Jarrett, and Dewey played in Liberation, and Ornette, there's an Ornette too, you know, playing with Ornette. So it just seemed like the right combination of people. And I started getting into researching. I had a lot of Paul's charts just from that band, but with Charlie's music, Liberation, those were kind of full-on arrangements because it's a larger ensemble, and I might just have a guitar part. So I started transcribing different tunes of Charlie's from his different bands, like Quartet West, and there's a tune of his off a Keith Jarrett record that we do, Pocket Full of Cherry, and what else? Alice Coltrane, Forteria, we did that. He originally did that as a duet with Alice Coltrane. So with Charlie, with Paul, I had a lot of music to choose from, and probably it was more like too many options, and had to kind of whittle down maybe what would work. And with Charlie, I just kind of sought tunes good for this combination of people and be a little different from Paul's tunes. So yeah, that's kind of the project.
Two separate projects, or this one project?
No, it's one, because the name of the record is called Charlie and Paul. So
okay.
It's half Charlie's music, half Paul's music.
Oh man, this is definitely a recording I want to get.
Well, it's only out on vinyl, but
Oh,
Nouvelle has this policy where after the record has been released as vinyl only for 2 years, then they allow the band leader, they give the band leader the master files, and
oh,
I have the option of releasing it on my own as a CD and digital files. But I spoke with Elon recently, and they're considering taking on releasing their own records as digitally after the 2 years is up. So
that's a good
yeah,
idea.
yeah, I think so
So,
too.
and when did you do it?
3 years ago is when we recorded it, and it came out in February of 2018.
And is that why we actually saw a video of it?
Yeah, yeah. What they did when we recorded, and they did this with every project. They would like there would be 2 days of recording. The first day was just trying to get as much done as possible, and then the second day would be do whatever's left, and then there would be a photo shoot as well as some video. They would want to video the band playing a tune, and so they could have it as a promotional video. So that tune actually isn't on the vinyl record,
Huh,
and because there were two tracks that we didn't have enough room to put them on, but when we release it digitally, I'm hoping we can include those two tracks.
interesting.
And then with John Cowherd's and Ben Allison's project, there's also videos from those as
Oh,
well.
cool. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll watch that. First of all, I just want to say Taylor Hatch, who I was telling you about,
Hmm.
was that a Martin acoustic in that video?
Yes, it's a 1959 00021. It's an incredible instrument.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, Taylor, just, like pull in that drool. And then my friend Roland Ascaruns, he said, Steve, you think you have it bad? Try living with Ascaruns as your last name.
Yeah. Well, I believe me, I'm aware. I'm aware.
And is there a link to the record company?
They have a website. Um, just new. I mean, if you Nouvelle is spelled Newvelle.
Was there a hyphen though somewhere?
I don't. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think there was a hyphen like this new VELLE.com or something.
Yeah, maybe. But I mean, if you put Nouvelle in a Google search, I'm sure that their site would come up first.
Yeah, okay. Nouvelle. I hate when it corrects me. It's trying to tell me that I should use Bell. No, I don't want to use Bell.
Yeah. Spell check.
Yeah, and Joyce Glasgow, who's a very educated listener, she said he has great musical affinity with Ben Allison.
Yeah, I've been in Ben's bands a long time, since 2005, and we're really best friends in many respects. Um, he's not only have I, grown as a musician from playing in Ben's groups, but he's been so helpful. He's played in my trio. He's on a trio record of mine, and he's on my latest record, which he helped produce as well as mix. And he did an incredible job mixing. And he's an amazing musician. He's so intuitive, such a great listener. Yeah.
Well, may I say that I'm totally impressed because I hadn't really closely followed your career when you lived in LA, of course. And before we got on, he was asking me if he was remembering right about this gig that we had.
Yeah.
I'm always like thinking, hey, what if I la 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 la, and that was my period of, hey, what if I have a band with two guitar players? Like a singer with one guitar player isn't enough, but
That might still be too many. But
but I've always loved singing with guitar, and so there was this gig, and I've talked about that gig on here with somebody, I can't remember who, but might have been Vinny Golia. Anyway, because we were talking about Eric Von Essen, the bass player, and so we did a gig at Chadney's, which was a lot of people remember Chadney's, but it was one of the hipper local jazz clubs. It was right across from NBC, and it was a really cool hang there. And
Yeah.
yeah, we had this gig, Larry Coons, Steve, Eric Von Essen, and Paul Krybick. And here's what I remember about that gig. The last song of the whole night, because it was a blues, and I did my thing, and then, stepped aside for solos, and I was, of course, going to come back in at the end. And what I remember is Eric musically taking the hand of everybody and leading them into this musical space, which blew my mind. And I just, I knew that I didn't have to come in. I knew that that was, that was where it was going to be perfect.
Yeah, I only, I was only in LA for 2 years, and
Really?
I was really lucky to play
Wow.
with all the great musicians I played with. But Eric and I was especially lucky that I was there while he was around. And I think I played about 5 different gigs with him. Every one of them was special. But the thing, I mean, he was a really rare musician, one of those that just from the moment, I mean, Charlie Haden had this quality, and there are certain known musicians that you would say, oh, yeah, that stands to reason. Eric wasn't known like that, but for me, he was on that level. He was this unbelievably deep and also intuitive, but when he just played, this like everything just felt like music at its core. Everything just was like would almost stop you in your tracks. Just it felt so good and it made so much sense. And yeah, he was special.
Yeah. Yeah, he really was. And he wrote really beautifully too. My husband collects records, and mostly he collects for himself rock and blues.
Hmm.
And he'll have a pile of jazz records that he's gotten somewhere, and so I look through, And he had this sealed copy of Nils Klein
Hmm.
and Eric.
Oh yeah.
It was really beautiful.
Yeah, those guys had a history for sure. Jim Hirschman also did think a duo recording with Eric.
Oh,
That's where I met Eric originally, was through Jim, who's also one of my best friends here in New York that I never see, even before COVID. It's weird in LA, you could have somebody that lives 30 miles away and you end up seeing them, fairly frequently. In New York, you're in Brooklyn, they're in Queens, which, was maybe like about 8 miles away at the most. Don't see them for a year.
but that, I mean, well, actually, this show for me proves all that, because I have hundreds of people, literally hundreds of people on my list, and I'm like, I know that person. You and I worked together. I feel like I know you. When we said hello, yeah, we were friends,
Yeah,
but we haven't talked in years, like seriously talked,
yeah.
And even before, I mean, there's a lot of people who I play with or bump into a lot, but 2 hour conversations are very rare.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Yeah, but yeah, it's great. Oh, Tony Jones is here, and he said Eric was my fellow traveler. Oh,
Uh,
I didn't know that. And Jamie Rosen is here. Hi.
Jamie, hey Jamie.
He says he loves your new album.
Oh man, thanks so much. Means a lot to hear from my fellow guitar players
I
because that's
know.
where the scrutiny, like, you know,
I know, and Jamie Rosen is a really good guitar player. You know,
very excellent. Yeah.
and as I was saying, which I didn't really finish, but I'm really impressed because you've played a lot with some of my favorite musicians. I mean, Paul Motian. Oh my God, I mean, and I didn't even know that you played with Paul Motian. because I guess because I have older records
Hmm.
and then and Joey Barron, who when he was here we worked together, and who else you said? Oh, and Charlie Haden, right?
Yeah,
And yeah, I mean, well, can I ask you about Paul Motian?
absolutely not. So,
Please. No, I mean, I don't know. Well, when I was in college, yesterday I told you I was playing some of my favorite music. I was playing Weather Report and, people that I listened to, there was Michael Brecker, there was Weather Report. I mean, it was a mishmash of stuff, but the more modern jazz stuff, um, Paul Motian, I've been listening to it for a long time, and I just adore the way he plays and his sense of space. And oh yeah, Bob Moses was in there too. And anyway, tell me about Paul Motion. And you played
well,
for a long time.
um, I mean, those guys, both Paul and Charlie, were heroes of mine too. You know,
Yeah.
I'd listened. I guess my first exposure to them was through Keith Jarrett's American Quartet. So those records that were on ABC Impulse, a little later in the quartet, but Shades was the album that I'd first heard, and yikes, that record still blows my mind. but but then from there it's like it's like with anybody, once you kind of like go, wow, who's playing, and you go, oh, Paul Motian, then you find, oh wow, Paul Motian played with Bill Evans, and then that leads to another zone and everything. But so it wasn't, I listened to those musicians for a long time. When I moved to New York in 1995, I can't even believe I've been here 25 years already. But I was really lucky. Just, I guess a lot of things end up just being kind of timing and right place, and some folks that you just are friends or you happen to know. But Wolfgang, first I met Paul. I went to go hear Paul's electric bebop band at Sweet Basil, and I knew Wolfgang Moospiel, who was playing guitar in the band at the time, along with another guitar player, Kurt Rosenwinkel.
Mm.
So when I was in the club listening on the break, Wolfgang comes up. He says, "Oh man, so great you come here. You should meet Paul." Okay, So he takes me over to meet Paul, and Paul's sitting at a table with the other guys on the break, and Wolfgang says, "Hey, Paul, I want you to meet Steve. It's guitar, if I ever need a sub, this is the guy, And I was like, okay, And Paul's like, "Oh yeah, nice to meet you, man." So I mean, that was nice. And then fast forward, oh, I don't know, maybe like 6 months or 7 months or something. And I started doing some touring with Madeline Peru just as she started coming out, her first record. And Paul had called, he left a message, saying he wanted, just out of the blue, he called and said, "Yeah, I want to see if you could play this gig at the Knitting Factory." And I had called him, said, "Man, I can't, I'm on the road," and, you know? And I did, and of course you immediately think, there goes my chance,
Yeah, of course.
And so then a year later, I'm on the road again. This, and Madeline's record, it kind of took off. So, and it was good because it was like I'd been in New York just a little over a year, and a year and a half, actually almost two at that point. And having that kind of work, touring work, was a blessing.
Yeah.
And so my roommate at the time, I left a message from him. I said, "Look," because this was before cell phones, and I mean, maybe not completely before cell phones, but definitely before smartphones, and definitely before anybody was taking a cell phone overseas and using it, because it
Definitely.
would have cost like $25 a minute or
Yeah,
something,
yeah,
But so I told my roommate, I said, "Look, if anybody calls me for a gig, don't tell them I'm out of town, because that's sometimes the kiss of death, and then people just start thinking you're gone all the time, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
I just said, just tell them, oh, okay, I'll have them call you back, you know.
yeah.
And so I said, especially if it's Paul Motian. I just kind of because of the one missed opportunity, you know. So, and it turns out that Paul called again,
My God.
and my roommate had my itinerary, and he says, yeah, he's on the road. And then Paul's like, oh, where is he? Oh, it looks like he's in Norway right now. Oh, could I have the number of the hotel?
Really?
So I'm out, like, it's daytime before the gig, and you know, you have a few hours before you got to go to sound check and all that. And I go back to the hotel, and I walk in the lobby, and the clerk's like, hey, there's a message for you. Oh, okay. I'm like, Paul Motian tracked me down here. And it's like, oh yeah, my roommate. So I called him back, you know, a little later, so the time, you know, and he was like, oh yeah, man, I wanted to see if you could do this tour in October. You know, it was like a 3-week tour, Europe, and I just, you know, I just said yes. I didn't even like consider what might be on the books. I
Oh,
was just
yeah.
like, yes. I kind of knew that there was nothing confirmed,
Yeah.
but what happened later, well, so I said yes, and then he said, oh, great. And I thought, wow, you know, part of me was thinking, he just is hiring me. He never even heard me, you know. And I said, well, where did you get, you know, my info? And I was thinking maybe he members from Wolfgang, but he said Pat Metheny had
Oh,
given him my name, which this has happened a few times. And that goes back to the fact that I'm also from Kansas City originally, and Pat was from that area as well. And even though he left long before I even took up guitar, when he would come back and I would, you know, he would show up at a gig and scare the daylights out of me, you know. He was always incredibly supportive. And once I had moved out of town, I think he took that as, oh, this guy's serious. So I'll recommend the homeboy to some people I know, you know. I mean, that's appreciative. So when, you know, I thought, great, this is amazing. I'm going to do a tour with Paul. And I asked him I said, so will we do a rehearsal? And he said, oh, no, man, we'll just run some tunes down at the first sound check. So I thought, oh, wow, it's okay. I should probably
no
get a hold,
pressure.
I should probably get a hold of some music, you know? And he says, oh yeah, okay, I'll send you some charts. And I said, are there certain tunes that you all are doing that he goes, oh, you can talk to one of the other guys in the band about that. I'll just send you the music. So he sent this just like, you know, pile. But and I got it, and I thought, you know, I shouldn't try to narrow this. Even if I talk to one of the other guys in the band and they say, yeah, we've been playing this, we haven't really been playing this. Wouldn't it just happen that I get on the first gig and he calls one of the ones they haven't been playing? So I
That's
just
so
thought, you
smart.
know, I need
Yeah.
to. And a lot of them were tunes I mean, I knew a good portion of them because they were the bebop repertoire, but there was a lot of bebop tunes that I hadn't learned over the years. And this is fantastic because I thought, well, this is great. This is going to push me to learn all those tunes that I never got around to. So that's kind of how it happened with Paul initially. And I figured after the first tour that I'd probably get fired, you know, if not in the middle, you
This
know.
was before you went, right?
But he kept me on, and
So
so I was lucky.
when you got to you were okay, so the tour was approaching. You were
Hmm.
getting excited and you were probably a little apprehensive but very excited. And
Yeah.
then so was it the kind of thing where you guys sat down to play and after the initial whatever, you went,
Well,
is
I'll
that
tell you,
kind of what happened?
I remember that sound check very well
You do?
because our first gig was in Sweden, in Stockholm at
Yeah.
Fasching. It's a club that's been there forever.
Uh-huh.
And it's, you know, the other band, you know, so Kurt Rosenwinkel was still the other guitar player because Wolfgang couldn't do that tour. And the way Paul's bands worked, which is really interesting, was that nobody ever got fired or replaced. Well, the way he worked was that if you could make a tour, you were pretty much in the band. Like, if, in other words, if you couldn't make a tour, you kind of lost your place in line. He wouldn't necessarily call. He would call you back only if maybe the new guy couldn't make it again or something, you know.
Yeah.
But so it was an interesting way because Charlie was the opposite. If you're in the band, you're in the band. If you need a sub, you will be back on the next gig
Yeah.
or tour, you know.
Yeah.
But and it what didn't have anything to do with loyalty on Paul's part. I think it had to do more with convenience that he just felt like, hey, you know, this band it has a floating membership and kind of whoever was in it last is I'm going to call because they were just there. They were there, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes, and I could see it because he would ask you if you were available to do something right at the end of whatever tour that was.
Right.
So that's the thing is it was just kind of like he was in the moment always,
Yeah.
no matter what it was.
And so, what did you remember a little bit more about the,
Oh yeah. So
yeah,
that first sound check. So Steve Swallow was the bass player in the band, and Chris Cheek and Chris Potter were the tenor players. It's a pretty good sized group, kind of two guitars, two tenors, electric bass, and drums. So of course, you know, Swallow was another hero of mine from, and so I met all those guys at the airport. I knew Chris Cheek a little bit, but I didn't really know everybody else. I didn't even really know Paul. And we get to the first gig, and the thing I remember most was I had really practiced the music a lot, and I knew also that I had three other guys playing the heads to a lot of these tunes. So if I kind of was skating a little, that it wouldn't maybe entirely noticed, but I did make a point to really hunker down and practice and get the heads together. But was the thing I remember most was before we even played, like went over any tunes, was everybody, you know, everybody checks their equipment, especially on the road. You got to check amps, and Paul's playing drums that aren't his, you know, and all this stuff. But Paul would bring one ride cymbal that was his. But I just remember Paul hitting his cymbal and Swallow like starting to play his bass to the amp and without even looking going, I totally recognize those guys. just testing their instruments, you know.
yeah,
I mean, they just had this quality in the way they played their instruments, where you could hear it. That blew my mind. And then we ran down, you know, maybe like 3 or 4 tunes, and then I was on my own.
wow,
But it didn't feel scary. It actually felt kind of welcoming, and because there was so much intention in the band, everybody was so on it that you just by kind of the momentum of it all, you were in there, you know.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
So, and how long did you say you played with him?
So that, I mean, till he passed, I mean, 14 years. So that was fall of 97. And it wasn't a group, you know, because his main group was the trio with Bill Frisell and Joe Lovano. And then he had this as you know, a side group, as well as Trio 2000. That was with piano player Masabumi Kikuchi and originally Larry Grenadier. And then Potter played saxophone with that group sometimes. But that also had a floating membership, with the exception of Paul and Masabumi. Those were the two people that were always there. And but we would on the average we would do a 3-week tour every year, and then do like a week at Sweet Basil, which after Sweet Basil closed, we ended up playing a week at the Village Vanguard, sometimes 2 weeks in a year. And then in 2003, Paul, he had double bypass surgery and had to stay home for a few months. He was healthy, but but he was home for longer than he'd ever been. And he realized that he loved being home and that he didn't ever want to travel again.
Wow.
Yeah, and it worked out for him because everybody just hired him to do record dates in New York, and he was fine, and he just loved. He had been on so many planes and so many tours that I think he just kind of he was in his early 70s at that point, which is not to say there aren't touring musicians that are even in their 90s.
Yeah. Yeah. It just importances shift and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, was there something that you learned from playing with him?
Oh boy, yeah. And it's hard to there's just a lot of things that are sometimes hard to describe, but his time was incredible. It was just so centered. Like the pulse was just so even but loose. Like the beats were wide. They're so wide. And then, half of the music we would play, and a lot of it would be his own tunes, was out of time. And even when he was playing out of time, it still felt like there was this movement that felt like it didn't feel amorphous at all. It felt like everybody knew kind of what to move together. And he would set you up, like at the end of a phrase, he would do things. He was just so compositional that he always made everything clear.
Oh God,
And yeah.
I'm so right with you.
Yeah.
I can totally feel that.
And then he was a great band leader too.
Uh-huh.
Like on the road, I noticed that we would get off of like if we were, training from one location, we'd play one night, get up in the morning, take train a few hours to another place in Europe, and we get the train station, and we get in a couple of cabs, and if I happen to be in the cab with him, the promoter was usually in that cab too, and Paul would. So the promoter would say, "Okay, we'll take you to the hotel, and then we'll take you to sound check, then we get dinner," and then and Paul would go, "Okay, that's great. What time are you picking us up tomorrow morning?" He knew that for them, everything about the gig was primary, so he wasn't worried about that. What he's worried about is like after the gig's over, they're gonna forget. Oh yeah, I was supposed to send a couple of cabs to pick you guys, so he just gets that straight. Let's get. He was just so road savvy and experiencing that and seeing that is like, yeah, don't he didn't leave any holes.
Yeah. Um, is there any recordings? Can we watch anything on YouTube, or do you have anything?
I think there is some video of us playing at a jazz festival. Well, there's a video of us playing at a jazz festival in Brazil and Sao Paulo.
Huh.
And then there's video of us playing at Birdland as well. So any of those would be.
So, Paul Motian.
And then put electric bebop. There it is. But don't do reincarnate. Yeah, just do. Yeah. So yeah, that Brilliant Corners, that's at the Brazilian festival. Although there's other tunes that I mean, that's a great monk tune, but actually this one at Birdland down here, that might be a cool one too. I'm pointing like as if you can see me.
Where is this? This right here?
Right there, yeah. July 13th, 2002.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Holy moly.
Yeah. That's Ben Monder on the other one.
Oh.
And Tony Malaby is the other tenor.
Oh, Tony Malaby, yeah.
And Chris Cheek, and then Jerome Harris is on bass.
Wow.
Oh man, I haven't seen. I don't know if I've ever seen that. That that was that was one of his tunes called "Look to the Black Wall," which it's funny because Paul didn't normally play. I mean, he could, as you could see, he could play fast as he need to, but he
Yeah.
didn't really care to do that. And what I think the reason why that came about was we had recorded that tune a cup. When did we do that? Like a year or two early. I think a year earlier. And
Uh-huh.
when we recorded it, I remember we did 3 takes of it. The first 2 takes were a bit slower than that, maybe like, and then we did a take that was more like that.
Yeah.
And when we went in to listen, I remember everybody feeling like, oh yeah, that was the take, you know, not because it was faster, it had this thing, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And we went in there, and then Paul, it was so funny because I remember he went, oh, I don't like it, you know. It sounds like I'm trying to show off, like, you know, like show everybody how fast I can play. And we're like, no, it isn't. It doesn't sound like that at all. It just sounds good, you know. And then the next day he was agreeable. Then he just sometimes he would just need a minute to kind of sit
Yeah.
with it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking that while I was watching him. I was like, wow, he's really burning on this. And it's like,
Yeah, I
it's just
know.
not my impression of how he plays, but I
I
haven't seen it
know.
a lot, but yeah.
Well, that's the thing, is that was not representative of maybe how he mostly played during that time period. It's just
Yeah.
it didn't say on the YouTube what tune it was, you know. It just said
Right.
at Berlin had a date.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, my friend Dan DeVillas put up that John Cowherd particular song too that we looked at.
Oh
Say
yeah,
a little prayer. Yeah.
Bronco Braun.
Well, he found one, say a little prayer.
Oh, that's me and John playing the tune "Say a Little Prayer" duo. and at a live gig in Switzerland.
Okay, wait.
Which,
Normally
which
I don't,
yeah.
normally I don't go right away into the music, but can we listen to it?
Yeah, that's a live gig in Switzerland we did a couple of years ago at this really great venue, Muri Jazz Festival, and we played it because Aretha had just passed like that
Oh,
week, so
yeah.
that's why we played it. It's kind of a long track.
Okay, maybe we won't listen to the whole thing. It's 9 minutes.
Yeah,
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 we'll listen to,
yeah.
this is cool because we get to really hear you.
Cardenas. Long-time Cowherd. Thank you so much.
That's good.
Beautiful. That was really beautiful. You know, that song is such a song for everybody, right? It's just like, and even when you got to the end, you know, I
Yeah.
couldn't turn it off. You know what I mean? I can't turn it off there. And believe me.
Yeah,
Right?
I
I
know.
mean,
I did my best to just, kind of approximate Aretha's thing at the end. Because I mean, there's no way you can't go there. It's like part of the song.
yeah, it really is. Man, your sound, first, your tone is really beautiful tone.
Oh, thanks. I mean, mostly just kind of just plug into an amp and hope for the best.
Well,
But I mean, I have like a little reverb going on, and
it's amazing what guitar players can do or go through and decide. I mean, Jeff Richmond, he and I play together,
Mhm.
relatively often, not super often, but more than anyone else. And he has this huge board that he uses, and
Mhm.
it's just, and then, like you say, what you use something.
Well, I mean, I have a little reverb pedal, and I have a little what is it? Well, called tube screamer. Gives you a little distortion. But I mean, really, those are the two main sounds. I mean, reverb, I just use a little to create just a little depths. And for certain tunes, especially like that, if I play a note, I want it to kind of ring a little more than just if it was dry. And then the distortion is just there for certain kinds of tunes. I might use tremolo from the amp for
Yeah,
certain kinds of tunes, and it's not because I don't like or shun anything else. Some of it's just like that's the way I hear it, as well as I don't necessarily want to carry a bunch of other gear on the road. Because I mean
now it comes down to that,
the
right?
logistics. I mean, it really. I mean, and then somebody might, oh, that's such a cop out. You should. But yeah, it. I mean, just dealing with even just a guitar can be
Oh yeah,
physically no problem, but the mental exhaustion of like wondering if the airlines are going to let you carry it on,
yeah.
and so I mean, I had a Telecaster made for the road last year, and it's this guitar maker Pablo Valle, a Chilean guy, made this beautiful guitar, and it's lightweight. I can put it in a hard shell case. I can check it, no problem. So I mean, just alleviating that stress is
Yeah,
huge for traveling.
yeah.
It's huge. Yeah.
Jamie Finley is on. He says hi.
Hey, Jamie.
Always sounding great. Great to see you and hear you.
Oh man.
Ron
Thanks, man.
Peters. You know Ron Peters?
I know,
Ron Peters.
yeah, the
Yeah,
name, yeah.
he's up north. He's in
Uh-huh.
Seattle. Actually, Ron Peters and I were boyfriend and girlfriend in college.
There you go.
And then we came out to California together. He was originally from here, and we were together in LA for a while. What years were you here?
Uh, like middle of 2000, I'm sorry, middle of 1993, going into early 95. And that,
Okay.
yeah, because I moved to New York right at the end of March of
Okay.
95.
Ron was here a long time, way before that, but then he moved up north. But yeah, he's a beautiful guitar player too. Ray Pereira is
Should
on.
should I be on Facebook seeing the chat
You don't
or
have to.
okay.
I can tell you.
Okay.
Yeah. And Jamie says, just take the acoustic, maybe a mic.
Yeah, the acoustic would become splinters on the road. I know.
Uh,
I mean, the 335 is the guitar I play mostly, and I'll take that if I can kind of get a sense that the tour, bigger jets, just it's amazing what the hoops you jump through to try to assess things,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter anymore.
Not at this moment.
Not at this moment.
Hopefully it'll matter again, but
Yeah, it will. Although I think the airline, the one thing, because the airlines were kind of in that place where they were like, they knew everybody had to fly, they knew everybody, and they were pretty much in control, and now they're kind of begging us. Which I must say, I don't mind. I don't like seeing them in that situation, but for all the kind of grief they put a lot of people through that I know, it's kind of like, okay, now you see, clean that jet.
really bad. Let's see. Rosanna Vitro says hi. A warm hello.
Hey, Rosanna.
She's going to be on Sunday, actually.
Cool.
Sunday, Rosanna Vitro. Hardest working girl in show business, or one of them anyway.
Yeah.
And Jamie says you sound amazing.
Oh, man. I appreciate it always.
So, where did you grow up?
In Kansas City. And
Where's Kansas City?
Kansas City.
Oh.
Kansas City. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. You said that before, and
Yeah.
it didn't register.
That's all right.
Kansas City, Kansas, or Missouri?
Come on.
Or...
Yes. Bing,
Okay.
bing, 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 bing.
Sorry. So
No,
I'm such a cozy
okay.
girl,
That's okay, but the fact that you even knew that there were two is a huge plus. So I was born on the Missouri side, but I grew up on the Kansas side in the suburbs. And but when I started playing music, I went to high school and was in big bands there and everything. But when I started playing, I was playing, all the clubs are on the Missouri side, because Kansas was kind of a blue state at that point, or a dry. They were dry. They only had private clubs that served wine and beer. But that, so all the clubs were on the Missouri side, which is really the more prominent of the two towns. And then it was just kind of like baptism by fire, because I considered going to music school, but I just was working from 18, 19 years old, going around town, playing sometimes 6 nights a week and 5 afternoons a week, like a matinee, and playing with musicians better than me. And this one band would be primarily bebop. This other band would be all original. There was another group I was in that was kind of like R&B and blues and everything. So I was just getting kind of everything I needed. I was growing and learning. And I just never ended up going to music school. But then I was also taking lessons from like the town guru, John Elliott, who was a piano player. All the guitar players took from him. I think in Matheny even took some lessons from him when Pat was super young.
Oh.
And it was great. John had his own approach to teaching theory and all of this. He was amazing, though, very inspirational. And then I went to junior college and university, UMKC, for a year. So I did go to school a little bit, but for about 2 whole years, I guess. But I was so immersed into playing and gigging and learning on my own and from private instructors, that I felt like I was in a good place until I just kind of hit this point, like, okay, am I just going to do this here, or I wouldn't mind seeing what it's like elsewhere, just to play some music. And that's when I actually moved to San Francisco first.
Oh.
really, more than anything, it was just some friends lived there, and I visited them. And of course, you know how it is. You go to San Francisco, and you're like, oh, this is really nice, you know. And I ended up just kind of getting a place and staying, and then I ended up there for 4 years.
Oh, wow.
And
Did you know Jim Nichols up there?
that name sounds really familiar. But
Great guitarist and bass player.
yeah, but that's where I met Paul McCandless and played in his group for a
Oh,
while, and Jeff Beal, you know, great
really?
trumpet player and composer. And
Yeah.
it was really Jeff, because Jeff moved down to LA around 92, like middle or late 92.
Yeah.
And and he was, and then after a few months when he was getting settled, he'd call and say, "Hey man, would you want to come down for a gig or two, you know?" Sure. And then I showed up, and there was, you know, Patitucci was on one gig, and you know, these musicians that I knew about, and after doing a few gigs, I kind of thought, wow, I'm kind of, you know, getting to know musicians on the scene without, just by default, by doing these gigs. And I thought, well, it might be kind of fun and another different thing to just come down here and sublet for a while. And I subletted in a place. That's where I met Jim Hirschman. I was subletting from one
Oh,
of his roommates.
yeah.
And that's one thing led to another. I just got a, you know, permanent place there for a couple years. But then my buddy Mike Hyman, a drummer friend, really amazing, used to play with Joe Henderson and Gary Burton.
Hmm.
He had lived in San Francisco a long time. He had also moved to LA around the same time I did. So we'd get together. He had a little drum studio, and we would just play duets, you know, every once in a while. And I was kind of at a transition where I was looking for a new place to live, and Mike called me up and said, "Hey, I'm going to move back to New York. I got a friend that's got an apartment in the East Village, and but I kind of would like a roommate. You know, you want to do it? You know?" And I was just like, "Okay," you know, because it was another one of those things where I knew that if I didn't say yes, that it probably wouldn't happen again.
Yeah.
And I also thought, you know, things were, I mean, I hadn't been in LA very long, but things were going well enough to where I thought, well, I could go away for 6 months, and then if I came back, it wouldn't be like I burned all the bridges or anything like that.
Right.
So it was a little daunting, a little scary, because, you know, I think musicians kind of feel like, in general, if they can get kind of established in a scene and they're working, why would you leave, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know, New York was always in the back of my mind, and I thought I gotta try it, even if it was for a little while. And here it is, 25 years later.
It was a good move. Um, let's see. I have a few questions and a few comments. First of all, Atmaro says hi.
Oh man,
He said, "You haven't
tomorrow.
seen you in a long time. I believe we worked with the same producer,
Yeah,
Mr. Maki, many years
yeah,
ago.
Yoshio. Yeah, and then with
Much
Paul,
respect to you."
we're on Paul Hanson's record, The Great Bassoonist,
Paul, yeah.
Astro Boy Blues. Yeah.
Oh, cool. And then I have a few questions. Like Taylor asked, what was the biggest lesson you got from playing with Charlie Haden? He also asked about Vic Juris, which I was going to ask too, if he had influence on you. And Sandy Cummings said she wanted to know what it was like working with Patitucci.
Okay. We'll start in order. Yeah,
Okay.
Charlie was asked about first. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a similar answer to Paul, like what I gave about Paul, where there's this really just center of time that was kind of undeniable, and a feeling of comfort, actually. You know, someone was just playing so clearly that you just feel like all you could do is just join them and not think about it, just play. Those are the kind of musicians they were. They just were, in many respects, natural and didn't overthink it. They
Yeah.
just went with their instincts a lot. So they drew you into that, I think.
Right.
And Charlie was he was so amazing with melody and sound. The first time I played with Charlie, so I was Larry Kuntz, who we all know is like one of the baddest guitar players on earth.
And he says hi. He's painting. He can't join right now, but he said
Oh,
hi.
tell him he missed a spot. No, but sorry. Um, um, but Larry so graciously asked me to sub for him because he went on sabbatical at Cowherd in 2003
Yeah.
and also 2010, and I subbed for him both times. But the first time, so it was the spring semester each time, and the first time I rented a room from a friend that had a house in Granada Hills, so it was pretty close to school, pretty close to
Yeah.
Cowherd. And Larry, he totally hooked me up. I had a couple of ensembles to do and about 5 or 6 private students. Not even that busy of a schedule, but very worthwhile to be there. So, and it's such a great environment. Anybody knows anything about Cowherd, it's
Yeah.
just so it's kind of the way I wish a lot of schools were, just
Yeah,
where
very.
everything is integrated. Like the musicians have to walk through where the dancers are rehearsing or where there are paintings, or there's just all this kind of influx between all of the artists, no matter what their area is. So so I was there. It was about mid-semester, it was middle of March, and I get this phone. There was a message on my voicemail, and it was Charlie Haden. He was like, "Hi, Steve, this is Charlie Haden. I wonder if you could come play with me up at the school. I have just a short concert to play a few tunes for administrators." He goes, "I was going to play it solo, but I'd rather play it duo, with you." And I'm like thinking, okay, duo with Charlie Haden. Who would ever turn that down? So I called him. And yeah, I'd love to do that. And I was kind of thinking, I wonder how he got. I kind of always never remembered to ask him how he got my info, but I'm assuming that he talked to Paul, and that Paul probably said, "Oh, hey, by the way, one of my guys is out there," and probably said something. And then Charlie, he will remember something like that, and then maybe think of a situation where he could, do something. But anyway, we played just 5 tunes together. I was even playing an acoustic guitar that Jim Hirschman had left at this mutual friend of ours' place, Kalani, and it was so I remember from the first few notes that the feeling was just like, because I was obviously self-conscious about it, but I wasn't nervous at all. Like first few notes, it was like, oh wow, it felt like I sat down in the most comfortable chair I ever sat in my life. It was just like his sound, and just like the whole feeling of it was just like, oh wow, how could you not play well with that?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like he was made it easy.
Like a bed.
Yeah, it was
Supporting you.
incredible.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that's the big lesson I got from Charlie and Paul, was just don't try to, just let the music happen. You're there to facilitate it, but don't try to force it.
Yeah, I love that.
But and then so Patitucci, and who was the other?
Oh, the other was Vic Juris.
Oh, Vic, yeah.
Yeah.
Vic, I did, I've been aware of Vic since I was a teenager, of course. And I'd heard, several records that he was on, and I always thought he was amazing. But when I started teaching at the new school, it was because he was on faculty there. It was when I actually got to know him personally. And then there was a drummer who actually used to live out in California, Mike Steffens,
Oh yeah,
who
of course.
who hired Vic and I to do. We played 2 gigs down at the Deerhead Inn down in Delaware a
Oh
while
yeah,
ago.
Mike talked about a lot about the deer head.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and Jerome Harris played bass on those. So I mean, Vic was kind of everything I feel like you'd want to be in a person and a musician. He was just the coolest, sweetest guy, and and great sense of humor, and but yet just so honest and real, and you know, as a musician, super solid and incredible, wonderful sound and facility and imagination on the instrument.
Beautiful.
I felt really lucky to get to know him, and just what I mean. I still kind of can't believe he's not here. It all happened so fast.
It did happen fast.
And I went over to his house a year ago, about right now, after he had finished his kind of first rounds of chemo, and he was doing okay. He was kind of bouncing back from it a little, just strength wise. But you could tell he'd been through the ringer already, because chemo, it doesn't. It's there to try to kill something, and it ends up doing a lot of other damage too. But nevertheless, we played a few tunes together, and there was no like you wouldn't even know. He was just like, it was so powerful, and just all of his musicianship was intact. He's like, and of course he was like, "Oh, I don't feel like I got any chops." I said, "I wish I had the chops that you feel like you didn't have." You know? He was incredible.
He was great. I was in New York. I think it was. I'm pretty sure it was a few years ago, like 2 years, 3 years ago, to the Jazz Congress in January, and I was hanging out with Jay Clayton and Vic's wife. I
Oh
can't
yeah,
remember.
yeah, Kate.
Kate,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And Kate McGarry was there, and
Mhm.
so was Kendra Shank. Anyway, but we went to the 55, and
Mhm.
I've said, I'm really into guitar. So when I heard him, oh yeah, I didn't know his name actually. It was because Brian Charette was playing.
Oh yeah.
I know Brian, so, and as soon as I heard Vic, I was in love. It was like,
Oh, he
what?
was.
Oh my
Well,
God, it's so beautiful.
he's another one of those musicians that went, because we did. I remember I also played. Zinc Bar was having kind of it went on Monday nights. They would have this guitar quartet play, and it would be, there was a little rotation between different guitarists, but Jack Wilkins was often there, and Vic was part of that. Mark Whitfield, Vinnie Valentino, Paul Ballenbeck. There's a bit of a rotation. All great players. And one night they would have a special guest on that night that would also, you could choose to play with different of the other guitar players. And I said, Vic, let's do a duo. So we played what everybody calls Black Orpheus, but it's really called Mania de Carnaval. The movie's called Black Orpheus. But uh, and it's the same thing as I described with Charlie Haden. Just everything felt like it was all in place. Everything just felt right. And just,
Oh,
he was
beautiful.
deep. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so the next question is John Patitucci.
Yeah. So
He used to,
John,
he used to be a kid bass player out here, in Costa Mesa. There was this club on Balboa Island, and he and Eric Marienthal, they were kids. Well, they weren't 12, but they were young
hmm
and great. And that there was a real scene right there. There was a club there. I forget the name of it, but and yeah, they used to play there all the time. And then time moved on,
yeah,
and John became John Patitucci.
he sure did. he's also, I mean, you know, I'm lucky. I played a lot with musicians that I not only admire but are also really cool people. You know, I admire musically and personally.
Yeah.
So John is so much that, and I met him first time because of Jeff Beal, because Jeff. It was one of those gigs that I came down to LA for. We played at Le Cafe, and it was
Lake.
on the, yeah. So on the gig was John was playing bass and Weckel was playing drums and John Beasley was playing piano. And it
Oh,
was the first time I met all of those guys.
yeah.
And it was really fun and cool. And I was a little intimidated.
Yeah, it's not like anyone
Yeah.
the bandstand was like a slob
Right.
or something. Yeah.
But fortunately, I knew Jeff's music pretty well, so you know that was my kind of consolation. Was that, oh, I know I'm not going to get lost, you know. So, so then Jeff did a record about less than a year after that in LA, and I was still in the Bay Area, and I drove down to record, and it was so John was playing bass on that, and then there was Weckel played and Vinny Colaiuta. They traded drum duties on that, and Beasley played piano, and I think Steve Tavoloni played tenor, yeah, on some stuff.
Nice.
So it was really fun. It's great, and then I really got to know John, you know, or I got to know him pretty well during that session, yeah, as well as you could for a couple of days. But
Yeah.
you know, he's just that kind of person, though. Like once you sort of befriend him,
He's
you
open.
remember.
Yeah.
You know, actually, now that I think about it, I think the first moment I met him very briefly was at the Russian River Jazz Festival a year or two before that, where I was playing there with a keyboard player named Kit Walker.
Oh.
And John was playing with Chick's Trio, and they were backstage. They were going on next, and I went backstage, and he came up to me and just to say that he enjoyed my playing. But that was just, you know, but you know, it was nice, and I felt a little taken aback because I was like, hey, you play more guitar on bass than most, you know. So then fast forward to living in New York, and I moved here in 95. I think John moved back here a year later, a year after that, 96, and they moved up to Hastings on the Hudson.
Yeah.
And he called me for a gig about a year or two after he was here to play just like a little thing out in Long Island somewhere.
Uh-huh.
And that was really fun. But it, you know, I would run into him every once in a while, and it was always great. And then in 2000, then when John Cowherd asked me to play in his Mercy Project band in 2012, the band was Patitucci and Blade, and I found out that Patitucci had recommended me to John Cowherd, and I had met John Cowherd, so he was like, oh yeah, Steve, yeah. So that was my first time playing with John Cowherd and Blade, though I had met them. I didn't really know them that well.
You
But
know,
that's,
I was not familiar with John.
yeah, he's in Brian Blade's fellowship
Oh,
band.
I see.
And he writes, you know, quite a bit of the material. He contributes a lot to that group compositionally and other ways, you know. He's sort of like Brian's right-hand man in many respects, if I may say that, which I just did. But that's, you know, that it was really that group where I felt like I really started to get to know John a lot more, and then the context of that music and everybody else in the band, it really was such a it's incredible music, John Cowherd's music. And then John Patitucci got he said he'd had this idea for a long time to do a 2-guitar band with me and Adam Rogers, and with Blade on drums. So that we recorded in fall 2014, and then the record came out. We did a tour the next 2 years.
Yeah.
So all through that time, really, it's been in the last 8-9 years that I've really gotten to know John a lot lot better and become friends.
I'm I need to step out to take care of a family moment, but I'm gonna play something.
Okay.
And let's see, I want you to tell me, maybe make a suggestion. Guitar, I should put guitar.
Yeah, right.
Do you know Jay Azzolino?
Yeah. He's
I know him really well. Well, I mean, I used to know him really well because he was married to one of my best friends a long time ago.
you why don't you go back to remember the acoustic go back to the acoustic tune that you played first,
Yeah.
because I'm not seeing, click on that and then that'll take you to that other video that John Cowherd is playing a tune in the studio.
Which one? This.
So they're in a dream.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And this
And
will.
now go over to your right and you see where it says John Cowherd Quartet Bronco Braun. Through fourth one down.
Oh. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
That'd be a pretty good one, I think.
Okay. I will be back. Beautiful. Yeah. When I came
Yeah,
in,
those
I almost
guys.
didn't even hear you in there.
Those guys. Those guys.
You know, my friend Dan Davila mentioned, which I own, for people who love guitar, should get the album Seasons with Anthony Wilson, Steve Cardenas, Chico Pinheiro, and Julian Lage.
Yeah, Anthony wrote a masterpiece when he wrote that suite. He's an incredible musician and great guy too. Yeah, that was for a concert we did at the Met on the guitars that were also called the Seasons, built by John
That
Monteleone.
was so interesting. So this guitar maker made guitars.
And named them after the seasons. 'Cause,
Yeah, they were beautiful to
yeah,
look at, and they probably
they're kind of works of art.
did they have really different sounds?
Yeah, actually they did. They had different kind of personalities. The one that was called Winter, I think had a more robust voice. But then there's a couple others that maybe played a little easier and had other qualities, maybe spoke single note wise really well or something like that.
And you guys switched guitars too,
Yeah,
right?
that was part of the deal. We're switch like in between
Great
each suite.
concept.
So we each get to play each season, and we're each featured on a particular season. I was featured on a Winter because, like, snow on the roof. But there's fire in the furnace. No, you know.
That's a beautiful project.
It's an amazing record.
The only, the only thing about listening to a project like that is if you are not totally hip to whose voice sounds like what, you end up going, I wonder who that is.
I know.
You know?
In a certain respect, it was kind of cool because then the music was the thing that was putting
Yeah.
itself forward, because then all the blending of the parts, you know
Yeah.
that. But then once you heard a soloist, I think after a while you could kind of figure out.
Yeah. I used to, when I was, at some point in my life, I used to try not to look at who was playing on a record when I heard it, just so I wouldn't be swayed in a particular way. Like,
That's
oh,
cool.
it's Paul Motian,
Yeah.
it's just like, oh, ooh, I love that,
Right.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. Hey, would you mind if I play a track off my new record?
Yeah, I'd love it. And Michael Barsamanto says hi.
Oh, Bars.
He said Carducci.
Carducci.
Jamie Finley
Yeah.
Jamie Finley quoted Barry Zweig about Larry Kuntz. Larry gets so lucky with his notes.
Barry's Flag, man. Another gem.
Another gem.
Gem of a player and a person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, play us something.
So
from the
so I'm
new-
going to do a share screen because this is actually a video that I put together in iMovie with some film, with some footage of me playing, like all the photos except for the band photos in the studio, but all the little video footage and otherwise photos or things that I took on the road. The video footage is from a gig that I'd played in the Philippines a few times with Ben Allison was on that gig. So this is the tune called Reflector on the Blue Has a Range record. So hold on a second here. Okay, I'll do share screen and share computer sound too.
Yes.
Yeah. And everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay, and then I'll make it big, and then we'll go.
nice. Really nice. Beautiful. The music is
Fun.
fantastic, and I really like the video. And I've done some iMovie things, so I know the process a little bit.
I was winging it, no pun intended. I really was.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
really nice though. Beautiful. Um,
thanks.
the music is so good.
Oh, thank you.
It's so nice to hear your music, and kind of rediscover you, as it is.
You know,
It's like, hey, yeah, I like him. Wait, oh, yeah, listen to what he's playing like now. Yeah.
oh God, it's thanks for asking me to do this. I'm looking forward to it because I knew not only catch up with you after so long, but all these other usual suspects showed up and said hey, which I'm so glad to hear from
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah, it's really nice. Um, let's see. I wanted to ask you your I want to sing with you.
There you go.
I mean, it's unfortunate that the there's not quite yet the platform to do it, without the latency. But
Yeah,
I don't know. This is definitely is inspiring me to actually create something with you. It would be really nice.
it'd be fun. We've
Yeah.
done it before.
So true.
Long time ago.
Yeah, and now that I know that all these two guitar things exist, now I feel kind of like a little cocky that I did that years ago. I was like, yeah,
Yeah, before all of that. Yeah.
yeah, man.
I've been in a lot of two guitar bands and they've all been really fun and amazing, just learned so much.
Is your record out now?
It is. It came out almost 3 weeks ago. Yeah.
Okay, so people
On
can buy it on
Sunnyside,
YouTube,
yeah.
iTunes.
Yeah, iTunes and Bandcamp and Amazon. I think Bandcamp and Amazon have hard copy CDs.
Say that again.
Yeah. Bandcamp and Amazon, I think also, along with downloads, sell hard copy CDs.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
interesting. I didn't actually know that Bandcamp sells hard
I
copies.
think, I thought I saw that on the site, so I could be mistaken, but Amazon definitely does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I know. One day, somebody said, I think it was actually my website person. No, or was it? I don't know. Somebody clicked on my song on my
Hmm.
site, which normally would go to CD Baby, and it said, "We're closed. Our store is closed." I was like, "What?" I mean, they didn't even send out a
Wow.
message. They didn't
Yikes.
go, "Hi, we're closing," just so you know, which
Yeah.
I just don't quite understand why. So I'm starting to bring over stuff to Bandcamp. I'd like,
Yeah.
I'd
It's a
like,
good, yeah, they're good people.
yeah.
Definitely.
Do you
Well,
do a
Kathy,
lot of, oh, I'm sorry, you have to
no, no, it's
go.
okay. I wish I didn't have to, but I
Yeah,
have, I have to go and I have something at 5,
yeah,
or which is 3 or 2 for you.
yes. I'm gonna let you go and got audience, you can stay on. I'll play a little bit more of Steve, in the next 5 minutes. And Steve, thank you so much for coming and hanging out for 2 hours.
Oh,
Really
thank
great.
you. I had a great time and so great to hear from all old friends and thanks for dropping by, everybody. Um, Means a lot.
We're gonna be following you now.
Okay, I'll be looking over my shoulder.
Okay. Have a good evening.
You too. Thanks again.
Bye, Steve.
Bye bye.
Okay. So let's see. Yeah, sorry I didn't get to the last bits, but he had to go teach. I'm gonna go find some more, just a little bit more of some some of his stuff. But I did want to tell you Tomorrow is my day off. I'm not going to the beach, but there's a bunch of little things going on at my house, so I have to pay attention. And Friday, Clayton Cameron, wonderful drummer who played with Tony Bennett and Frank Sinatra and some rock groups, and he's known as Mr. Brush. He's a great guy. And then Saturday, Abe Pearlstein, who's a DJ, and he's interviewed a lot of us jazz people and other people too, but he's a really cool guy, and he's interviewed so many people. I thought it would be fun to talk with him. And then Sunday, the wonderful singer who's really a go-getter, Rosanna Vitro. She's worked with a lot of great people. And then, can you give me 2 minutes?
I just need your phone.
Oh, you need my phone.
Can I have your phone?
Yes, you may have my phone. Here you go.
Download it now.
Okay.
Here.
Yep. And so, yeah. And then Monday is Dina DeRose, who's an awesome pianist and singer who's been around on the scene for a long time. Then Tuesday, Kim Richmond, one of the best alto players I know of. And he has a big band. He has a big band and writes, it's an unusual big band. It's not like kind of the, swinging big band, but it's a more modern music big band. And then Corey Allen, whose talents really have covered a large area. He's really interesting. That should be a really good one. And Friday we're going to have, I'm calling them the Terrible Trio, 3 singers: Kate McGarry, Shauna Tucker, who also plays cello, and Lenora Hammond. So that should be a fun hang. Saturday, a truly great arranger who's been on the scene for a long time. He's in New York, Michael Abene. I'm really looking forward to speaking with him. And last but not least, for the week, next week is Rebecca Kilgore and Tom Wakeling. Rebecca is a vocalist. She plays guitar too, but she's a vocalist, and Tom is a bass player. And Rebecca's singing is her phrasing is really beautiful. She's known amongst my kind of tribe, and she lives up north on the West Coast. So let me find something, a little bit of something to go out on by Steve Cardenas. And let's see. Oh, let me see. I'll show you what I'm looking at. And there's an interview. But we already interviewed him, so. Oh, there's Julian Lage and Steve Cardenas. What do you think? I think so. Quite beautiful. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for Wednesday. Thanks for being
There's never been a better
here.
time to join AARP.
Oh,
This special offer gives you...
stop that. And it was going on its own. I hate when that happens. Okay, thanks. Have a great evening, day, whatever time it is for you, wherever you are on the planet. And I will see you on Friday. Okay, thanks for hanging. Bye.